Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into an organization that's quietly, but honestly incredibly powerfully, transforming rural Nepal. We're looking at the Ehsan Charitable Foundation Nepal. If you've ever found yourself wondering how on-the-ground local aid actually works when it's done right, well, you are in the perfect place.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll start with rural Nepal's untold story, explore how they're rescuing sight, and then look at their work securing water and hunger relief. After that, we'll examine their operational backbone of trust and transparency, before wrapping the whole thing up with future partnerships.
Now, I want you to keep this one question in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer. How do you turn a single, isolated act of charity into sustainable, community-wide change? I mean, it's one thing to just hand out temporary relief, right? But it's an entirely different beast, both logistically and ethically, to build systems that permanently elevate an entire community.
So, let's kick things off with Section 1, Rural Nepal's Untold Story.
You know, when most of us hear Nepal, our minds immediately jump to those majestic Himalayan mountains and epic trekking trails. But far away from the tourist spots, families in rural areas are struggling every single day with just basic access to clean water, healthcare, and education. This timeline shows how Ehsan was born directly out of witnessing those exact struggles. Notice, they didn't just pop up in 2014 with massive fancy offices and some huge PR team. No, they started with localized, intimate observations of actual families who couldn't afford medical care or didn't even have a local well. By 2017, this grassroots effort officially registered under President Hamad Abdul Hafiz as a foundation built by people who actually speak the language and know the culture inside and out.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy driving everything they do. President Hamad Abdul Hafiz has this great quote, "Behind the numbers we mention in project reports, there is a real life." And that hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Because behind every well is a real family that no longer has to hike miles for a drink. Behind every single cataract surgery is a human being who is living in darkness and could suddenly see their loved ones again. They literally humanize the data.
Which segues perfectly into Section 2, Rescuing Sight and Restoring Independence.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the scale. Preventable blindness, specifically from cataracts, is absolutely devastating in rural Nepal, but it's also solvable. Look at the sheer volume of impact here. Since their very first camp back in 2017, they have screened and treated over 13,400 people. Between 2023 and 2026 alone, they ran 15 dedicated eye camps, pulling off 2,815 cataract surgeries. Just to put that into perspective, we're talking about thousands of grandparents who can finally see their grandchildren's faces again, people who can walk down to the market completely on their own, reclaiming their independence. It's a real game changer.
So how exactly are they pulling this off? Well, it's not magic. It's a highly structured local pathway. First, community mobilization to actually reach these isolated families. Second, rigorous screening and assessment. Third, strict beneficiary verification to make absolutely sure the most vulnerable get prioritized. And finally, the surgery and clinical care itself. A huge piece of the puzzle here is their technical partnership with the Makachi Eye Hospital. That ensures the folks receiving care get world-class, safe surgeries and that crucial post-op follow-up.
All right, let's shift gears to Section 3, Water for All Communities.
Look, before you can even talk about healthy communities, you absolutely have to have clean water. It's the foundation, and Ehsan has just made massive strides here. They've installed over 2,000 hand pumps, along with deep water wells, high-capacity storage tanks, and accessible stations for drinking and wudu, the washing performed before Islamic daily prayers. But here is the kicker, the thing that really separates them from your run-of-the-mill aid group. They don't just drop a pump in the ground, snap a photo, and bounce. No way. They do a deep dive needs assessment, they test the water quality, construct the infrastructure, and then they actually follow up to make sure it's being used and maintained by the community long-term.
That commitment to doing things the right way leads us directly into Section 4, Hunger Relief with Dignity. Food security is, for sure, a critical lifeline, especially during tough economic times and seasons like Ramadan. Now get this, in 2026 alone, the foundation distributed over 4,000 food packages. 4,000! That is an absolute logistical mountain to climb when it comes to sourcing, transporting, and actually handing out these essential supplies to families facing severe hardship.
But I want to pause here for a second because this comparison is just so vital. In the world of humanitarian aid, there is this really unfortunate trend of, well, poverty tourism. You see standard charities hyper-focusing on camera opportunities, sometimes even exploiting the needy just to get promotional ads. The Al-Akshan ethos? It is the exact opposite.
They are fiercely adamant that beneficiaries are human beings who deserve the utmost respect, not just props for a social media feed. They distribute aid respectfully, preserve dignity, and strictly protect the privacy of the families they help. It's poverty relief, but with actual humanity.
Which naturally brings us to Section 5, Trust, Transparency, and Responsibility.
Let's move to this and see how it builds out. For international donors looking for a reliable local partner, this operational framework right here is the golden ticket. Their project lifecycle literally leaves nothing to chance. It kicks off with a heavily documented needs assessment, flows right into structured camp planning, demands meticulous patient records for monitoring, and then wraps up with crystal clear media and financial reporting. They prove exactly where every single resource goes, making them a highly reliable, heavily documented implementing partner.
All right, finally, let's look at Section 6, Future Outlook and Partnerships.
The thing about Ehsan is they aren't just sitting back, resting on their past achievements. They're looking to permanently scale their impact. One of their biggest, most ambitious future goals is upgrading the community health clinic in Inner Wawa. They want to transition away from relying entirely on periodic health camps to building predictable, recurring, and accessible clinical care for hard-to-reach families. I mean, consistent healthcare access like that is the ultimate key to real, long-term regional stability.
So the crucial point is this. Ehsan is actively looking for international charities, medical professionals, and donors who want a serious, deeply capable local partner on the ground in Nepal. They aren't just fishing for one-off funding here. They are looking for real, long-term partnerships built on absolute transparency. You can actually reach out to them directly right now via WhatsApp at +977 98139 32586 or shoot them an email at info@ehsanfoundation.org.np to get that conversation started.
I'll leave you with this final thought today. Are you ready to partner with the foundation where every single number represents a restored life and protected dignity? The blueprint for real, lasting change in rural Nepal is already built. Now, it just needs the right partners to help it grow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to connect with the Ehsan Charitable Foundation.